to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Welcome in. It's Wednesday, June 4th, Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined by Jason Moore and my former Airbnb host, Betz.
Former? Does that mean you're never coming back? It was that bad?
Never coming back.
Kyle, I let you win in pickleball, man. I let you smoke me. I was just trying to be nice. I fed you, and this is what you have for me? Yeah, Jason, I don't know if you heard. Kyle and I had a nice little meetup this past weekend in the great state of Pennsylvania. Kyle, how was your experience here in this beautiful state?
The state has a lot to offer. It's just a little different than the South, very different than Phoenix. It's just the exact opposite. So
yeah, there's culture, there's history, there's things of age.
You can go outside in June and July.
Maybe
it's great.
Maybe other colors than brown. Yeah, I mean Arizona sucks. So yeah, it's both you guys have it better geographically and architecturally and culturally for sure.
Jason, you've been to Philly before. You guys did a live show?
We did a live show in Philly several years ago, but yeah.
Okay, so I went to a game with Betz, went to a baseball game, which I recommend, Jason, if you want to go to a baseball game soon.
I do not.
I was only cursed out a couple of times by people.
Oh, really? Only a few?
They did not like me.
There was not enough passion. Well, of course. I mean, Philly fans, and this is the great thing about Philly fans. Like, I can say disrespectful things to fan bases, and they get really upset about it. You know what I mean? Like when I talk about, I don't think it's as bad now that they're in Vegas, but when it was the Oakland Raiders, oh, they were the worst, and they'd get really upset if you said that they were obnoxious bad fans. The Philly fans are terrible. They are awful human beings as fans, just the scum of the earth,
including.
And the
Betz.
nice thing is, this is a badge of honor. They're not upset when I'm saying. They're like, "You darn right, we're the worst." And I kind of like that about him. It's like the one you love to hate. It's fun. And so I don't mind that. Now, we did the live show there, and the fans of our show, great people, love them to death. They were just as obnoxious at our show. It's like, dang, man, Philly brings it. And I'm not sure I love it. I know I love to hate it. So I wouldn't want it to change. Like, I complain about it. I make fun of it, but I think it would be sad if Philly fans just became Cardinal fans. You know what I mean? Like, no passion.
It's a special breed. There's so many funny accounts that I follow on like Instagram and stuff that are specifically like comedy related to Philadelphia sports reactions. And it's so funny, like the Eagles will be like, 10-6 on like the verge of the playoffs. And they're like, fire everyone. This team is so bad. Like reactions of fans coming out of the stadium, stuff like that. But yeah, Kyle only had a few choice words said to him. He did not get beat up, fortunately. Somebody tried to throw nachos on him. So yeah, it was a crazy experience. But that's because Kyle was standing up and cheering for the Braves after every hit or strikeout. And it's like, dude,
nice.
I mean, hey, I respect it. You do you, but you know what you're asking for when you do this. And then, of course, the Phillies got smoked, so Kyle had the last laugh.
He's probably got a shirt on that says Brave on it, so he's got to show courage. Anyways, can we do the thing where we stop talking about baseball and instead do one of the best things that we ever do as the fantasy footballers, which is a mock draft show?
Yeah, baby.
Maka-laka ding-dong.
Yeah, baby.
We can do that. This episode, we are going to do a Dynasty startup mock, and each of us has a spot picked out. I think one of the main things I want people to take away is our discussion, because we know Jason's ranks, sometimes maybe even better than he knows them himself. And so it's not so much us trying to, like, I'm not going to only try to snipe Jason, but I think I want us to talk out certain tiers of players and where we feel comfortable, because, Betz, you're going to be at the one spot. You're going to take an awesome wide receiver. And I'm going to look at your draft in a couple of rounds and say, okay, how do you feel knowing that you're probably going to ignore the running back position? I mean, I think you did that last year on this podcast. You just punted it away. You felt real cool with your 0 RB. The commenters probably loved you. And
I don't know, man. We had to make our show title something about low T. which was just specifically geared towards my team. So we'll see if that changes today. Probably not.
Yeah, and if you want all of our rankings, Jason's rankings, or Dynasty Startup rankings, rookie rankings, they are there in the Ultimate Draft Kit. We just came out on June 1st with all of their projections of every single player 2025 season. It's a lot of work, and I think at the end of the day, there's still this ongoing conversation we're going to be having throughout the summer. That's like one of my favorite parts that I tell people is this isn't going to go out of date. So when news changes with a certain team, and we look at, hey, the running back 2 situation completely changed. This is a player that you want to keep your eye on. You can do that. So all of that information, ultimatedraftkit.com. Jason, you put in a labor of love with that thing. Any last thoughts on the UDK?
Well, since this is the Dynasty show, it's worth noting, obviously, the UDK Plus or the Ultimate Foot Clan membership tier has all of the Dynasty information, the rookie rankings, the startup rankings. And in preparation for this show, I went back through my Dynasty rankings, wanted to make sure that they were good and truthful. I did a couple of mocks, to do a Dynasty startup mock, because we were bringing this up before the show. You don't, it's like we do drafts, several drafts every single year, real ones. I mean, tons of mocks, but real drafts we do every single year. You don't do a Dynasty startup draft every year. If you do, then 10 years from now, you've added 10 leagues, and that's, it's going to become unmanageable. And so it has been a couple years since I've done one. But what I want to say about it is I was going through, I was using, my Dynasty startup rankings and the UDK Plus, and going through the mock process and really testing and seeing, like, do I believe what my rankings say? And they're good, man. Oh, baby. I was like, this is some sweet stuff. There are gems popping up here. I love where this is versus ADP. So I am at least true to myself, because I did not have to change much. I will say this, though, and we'll talk about this when we get into the draft. I did not always go linear through my rankings, right? Like, depending on how you build your roster and who you took in the first 4 rounds, maybe you want to go with a younger guy who's lower in the rankings, or a veteran stabilizing presence that's lower. You've got to have that context when you go through a real startup draft, because startups, they last forever. So you want to make sure you don't screw up a startup draft.
Don't go back through a startup draft that, like I looked at one I did in 2019. I was like, oh, this team's doing well now. How did that startup go? Terrible. Just terrible. That team is just a bunch of dead corpses that are no longer in the league. And yet you can learn a lot of things. So yeah, Jason's rankings, apparently nobody's going to give him a freezing cold take on any of those rankings, because they're spot on. They're totally fine.
Seems so.
All right, let's jump in.
The Fantasy Footballers Mock Draft.
We're going to be starting our Dynasty Startup mock here. Betz has the first spot. Jason's at 5. I'm at 9. And
that
just
sucks to be me. I mean, I'm just saying, because after this first round, every single time I pick, one of you gets 2 picks before me, and you get to snipe my guys every time. So I'm already complaining, and we haven't even started.
Are you just going to throw some false trails, some red herrings just along the way?
No. The nice thing is this is for education, for trial and error, for the Foot Clan, for the children. So no, I'll say who I'm targeting and why, and hopefully at the end of this episode, every one of us and everyone listening is better at Dynasty startups.
I'm going to go over the settings, and then Betz is going to kick it off for us. So this is a 12-team, 1 quarterback, full PPR, 4-point passing touchdown, no tight end premium. I had to say all of that just to make sure everybody had their bases covered. We're going to be starting 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex, and then as many bench as we get to. If you want a super flex mock draft, and there are people out there that are already turning off the podcast with like, why did you not bring this up? We have a full 25 round one that's currently on the site. So there's 300 picks. You can mock all of them if you want to, and just say, hey, it's brand new. It's on the site. We have that for you available. And also all of Jason's Superflex rankings you can find in the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus. We would say that it changes some of your draft, but not all of it. And the last thing I'll say is your league comes down to who's in it. Like, the competitiveness of a league is not based on the settings. It's about who's in the league. And, people are shocked all the time, but the Ballers main league has no money involved, and yet it is by far the most competitive league I've ever been in my life. In fact, I hate that I think about it every single day, and I'm a co-manager, but I really do. I think about it. Usually it's me and Mike talking, but Betz.
Yeah, no money on the line at all. That league has cost me thousands of dollars. I mean, because if you win, you're spending money at the draft for banners and trophies, and you know what I mean. Like, just we spend a lot more than we make on that league.
All right, Betsy, you're up first.
Okay, we can keep this very short and sweet. At the first pick, I'm between two players, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, as I think a lot of people would be. For me, I would just lean towards I know what Joe Burrow is, and we think McCarthy will be great in the system, but we don't actually know. So that's the only thing. I will take Jamar Chase here, especially in full PPR.
Yes, I remember having that conversation a year and a half ago where we basically said we know what the stability is because Jefferson was just coming off of a historic season. And Chase just feels like locked in forever. So after Chase went Bijan, Justin Jefferson, and Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jason on the clock at the 105.
So this is where you might consider Brock Bowers, a true difference maker at a onesie position, or you look up at the wide receivers and who you want there. It's really tough. I would never grab a running back here. When you have the elite young Studley wide receivers, and I think there's still a handful of them. CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Puka. Those guys are like foundational pieces, and Brock Bowers would be a foundational piece as well. But I do think that I want to get through the elite of the elite wide receivers. They hold their value. They get more and more contracts. They get older and they get more contracts. They score more points. They miss fewer games. So I'm going to – it's really tough for me between CeeDee Lamb and Malik Neighbors because CeeDee Lamb is not very old. He's 26 years old, and he is probably going to score more fantasy points than Malik Neighbors right now. But, man, that's a 5-year age gap. It's like, oh – so I'm going to take Malik. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take him right off the bat and start up with a young stud wide receiver. I trust that the quarterback situation, well, it won't get much worse than it was last year, even if Jackson Dart's not that dude.
Do you feel like those four wide receivers are ahead of they're in a tier of their own?
So, no, personally, I don't have just those four. I would add a few to that. I think that when I'm looking at the elite of the elite, Brian Thomas Jr., Puka Nacua are in that group. The elite of the elite are Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Then the next of the absolutely outstanding foundational centerpiece wide receivers to me are CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Puka, and Brian Thomas Jr.
We're going to be doing Dynasty tiers this summer where we break down some of these positions. So if you're one of those people, you're looking at our Dynasty rankings and you want more information, we're going to be going over that all summer. So after Malik Neighbors went Brock Bowers, who I probably would have taken at the 109, CeeDee Lamb, and then Saquon Barkley. So I have a decision to make because I think I like building with wide receiver. That's the way that you guys have done it. But I think for this exercise...
Oh, is this an Ashton Genty pick?
This would be either Genty or Brian Thomas for me. So I think for this exercise, I want to go with Genty just to see how I build my team differently than y'all's. You guys, zero RB gets the clicks. People love the clicks. You guys are just going for the love. You're just pandering to the people.
Yep.
I am not a zero RB draft.
I know you're not.
I really am not. I've never enjoyed those builds. I recognize that they can be successful, but they can also be terrible too. To me, I am a later running back build in Dynasty startup. I can't imagine the first 3 or 4 rounds. It's not a matter of I don't like the running backs there. It's just there's usually about 4 rounds of stud young wide receivers. And if there's one on the board available for me to take, I'm going to take him every single time.
Yeah, so I took Genty, and then off the board were 4 wide receivers that I was interested in, but I did have a couple more that I thought were still in that tier. So Amon-Ra went, then Jaden Daniels went at the back of the first. In a lot of the one quarterback mocks, he ends up more in the second, but historic season. Brian Thomas Jr. and Puka is a start for Team 12, which is kind of nice if you want to build that way. Nico Collins and then Josh Allen. And I'm back on the board at the 204. And I want to see if there's some bias involved here. But there's a wide receiver that I feel comfortable. If you wanted to take him in a full PPR league in the first round, I am totally fine with Drake London. I think he's leveled up as an alpha. He was really good at the end of the year. I'm going to get a lot of Falcons, hate right here. But I think beyond him, you're looking at a couple wide receivers where I like Ladd. I have some question marks about Ladd. I like Marv. I know I have a lot of question marks, but I know that London is the dude. And he's going to be this generation's Mike Evans, where we look up in 5 years and go, is he still that young? So Drake London is my pick.
Kyle, you're little, I don't want to be too biased here bit. I mean, we all know, Kyle, you're picking a Falcon. Whenever you say that, you're picking a Falcon every time. So yes, I mean, hey, I'm with you. Drake London's a awesome. If he's in the second round, that is a priority target for me if he falls.
All right, after me went Hampton, Lamar Jackson, Ladd McConkey, and Jason, you're up.
This is great. This worked out fantastic for me. Most of the time, when I'm doing these startups, I'm usually 4 rounds, 4 wide receivers. There's very little that is going to get in my way of that. Sometimes if a great running back drops, I'll do it. The other way that it will happen is the way it happened here, which is Trey McBride falling to the, middle late part of the second round. I view him and Brock Bowers as truly foundational dynasty assets. These are young centerpieces of their offenses. Our champ team that Mike and I won back-to-back titles with, it was led by Travis Kelce. When he was a true, lapping the field type of player, it sets you apart. And I know there's going to be enough wide receivers for me to still be happy with my wide receivers, and I'm fine punting running back. So I'm thrilled that McBride dropped to me. I mean, I was considering Bowers a round ago, and I like Bowers. But if you're telling me, I get to start with, put it this way, me and the team next to me, because we inversed, I could have either Malik Neighbors and Trey McBride or Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. That is an easy Trey McBride and Malik Neighbors to me, because I don't see the gap between Trey McBride and Brock Bowers being as large as the gap between Malik Neighbors and Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, I totally agree. I looked at those and I was like, man, I like Jason's spot. After him went Achane. So we have a high T team with Gibbs and Achane. And then Marvin Harrison, Bucky Irving went at the 211. And Betz, you are back on the clock for back-to-back picks.
Yeah, if McBride happened to fall to this spot, he was definitely going to be a smash pick for me here. It does kind of feel like we're starting to get to the point where you are not uncomfortable with the wide receivers, but they're not slam dunk, home run, like locked in top dynasty assets, because there's a couple guys that are a little older, not saying that they're old by any means, but someone like AJ Brown, we've had this conversation, like, do you cash in now in a trade and understand that just the market, whenever you see a 29 or a 30 next to a player's name, they lose value in the trade market. That's kind of the concern with AJ Brown at this spot. But that said, whether he's a backup second or early third pick, I think that's a fine spot to take him. So I'm going to take AJ Brown here, and then I'm actually going to double tap at wide receiver. I'm going to consult the Dynasty Startup Rankings in the Ultimate Draft Kits, and I will take JSN, who all three of the ballers are pretty high on in Dynasty formats. I've been kind of on record saying, like, I don't love the Sam Darnold situation here, but this is a startup. You bet on talent, you bet on youth, you bet on production, and JSN fits all those things.
Yeah, JSN, I feel like we've gone back and forth. Like, Mike's brought up a lot of numbers about what it looks like for someone to break out in year 2 and what they do in year 3. But, you're getting to get him in the third round in a full PPR format where we have 2 flex. So I'm totally fine with that. After that is Burrow, Travis Hunter, who is going to be an interesting name of where he goes in startups, and then Tedero McMillan. So back-to-back rookies here in the third round. And Jason, you were up.
Yeah, I have too many question marks on the utilization of Travis Hunter to be taken that high. It could obviously work out, but there's just a lot of other players that don't have the same question marks. This is a really easy pick for me because I was targeting T. Higgins. That was my hope here, was that T. Higgins would make it back to me. And I see
As
you cringing.
was I.
Well, don't worry, because I'm not taking him. Because I didn't think that there was a world where Garrett Wilson, a couple years younger could score as many or more than T. Higgins. To me, when you're in the same tier, the same caliber, these are wide receiver 2s with wide receiver 1 upsides, and one of these guys is 24 and one of them is 26. I'm going to take Garrett Wilson. I'm going to take him over T. Higgins. I'm going to take him over his teammate Breece Hall, who is also here. He would probably be the next running back taken off the board. But I just want, when I build a dynasty startup, and I think this is an important thing, because you'll see, like, at the end of this draft, my running backs will probably be a little bit weak, but you have to sacrifice something. There's no one ever who leaves a dynasty startup who is strong at running back, quarterback, wide receiver, and tight end. You're choosing what you sacrifice when your opportunity cost when you make these. I'm going to sacrifice the running back position because I can get rookies year after year and replenish that, stockpile easier. I can get backups later in the draft where all of a sudden Tyler Algier becomes a league winner when Bijan goes down, or things like that. Whereas there's not really that at the back end of the wide receivers.
It's funny when I look at your pairing of wide receivers, Neighbors and Garrett Wilson, one of the, I guess, dynasty range of outcomes I've been having for Neighbors is comparing him to Wilson, somebody who's going to see 160 targets in a New York offense of, okay, what is the quarterback long term? Like, we think it's Dart, but 2 years from now, maybe it's not Dart, and maybe Neighbors continues to be a guy that's like, 6 touchdowns, 7.
Yeah.
I mean, he should be getting 10 in the right offense, but
for sure, the range of outcomes there, especially without the known quarterback. I mean, if you had a known quarterback, I took him at 5, so he can't go much higher, but the range of outcomes could be disappointing because of touchdowns, but also you look at Garrett Wilson and how disappointing he's been. He was the wide receiver 9 last year. You know what I mean? It's like, this guy was the wide receiver 9, and we're like, I don't know about that. He's a 24-year-old. He's going to get paid like a top wide receiver on his next contract. So I'm okay with 2 top 10 dynasty wide receivers.
And both those guys, too, are like classic PPR studs. That, you want the touchdowns, right? But like Garrett Wilson was wide receiver 9 in half PPR last year. I don't know what he was in full PPR, but in this specific exercise, if those are your PPR starting wide receivers, that's beautiful.
All right, let's take a quick break, and we will be right back. After Jason picked Garrett Wilson, it went Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, Jalen Hurts, and then I was able to get T. Higgins, somebody that I marked earlier as somebody I wanted in the 3rd round. And then a bunch of running backs went off the board. And I'll be honest, I was trying to time up my picks to figure out when I could still get a running back in this tier. And CMC went, Kyron Williams, Sam Laporta, Chase Brown, Travion Henderson, and Derrick Henry. So 5 out of the next 6 picks were running back, but there was one more running back that I was pretty happy to get who's on the younger side. And so I just want to philosophically talk about this real quick, just kind of pause, because you guys started very differently than my team. Betz, you're 3 wide receivers, Jason, 2 wide receivers and a tight end. And I started with Genty, okay? It's not something I love doing. Usually I'm going to, do the same thing, pick 2 or 3 wide receivers, but I'm sitting here in the 4th round and I'm looking at the wide receivers on the board and I think they're fine. I'm fine with Rome Odunze. I'm fine with Devonta Smith, who I've always loved. And yet at running back, it's going to start getting to some older dudes really quickly. I know that I'm probably going to be betting on some rookies. So the rookie that I want is Quinshon Judkins.
I figured that would be your pick.
Okay. So based on how I've built so far, I'm very balanced. I have Genty and Judkins and London and Higgins. Jason, what do you think so far?
So I actually love it. I think that there's no one single way to build. When I look at your roster, like for me, I don't want to put running backs into the equation. I want these, Garrett Wilson should be able to play for 7-8 years. And while sometimes running backs do, you pretty much go, I'm gonna hope for 3 solid years, maybe 4 years, and a second contract that runs out or something. That's how I view the position. However, if you're going to build with running backs early in a dynasty draft, I want to do it exactly how you did it. 2 rookies. It's the first contract where, most fantasy goodness comes from these rookies. So if you're going to take 2 running backs in the first 4 rounds, and they're both incoming rookies who I expect to score a lot of fantasy points year one, I've got no qualms with that whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a little scary jumping in a boat with two players who have never touched the football. Now, Genty, we're not worried about. Judkins, my only worry is just the team sucks, and he ends up with like 5 total touchdowns. But we talked about him a lot in those scouting process. After him was James Cook, Rome Odunze, who I think is a great pick in the 4th round, Terry McLaurin, and Jason, you're on the board.
Well, this is great. My target at wide receiver fell to me. I like to have 4 foundational wide receivers in all my dynasty leagues. Like that's kind of a barometer where if I don't have 4 foundational, young, very good wide receivers, I don't feel comfortable. I feel like I start getting the sweats. And so the fact that I took Trey McBride in the 2nd means right now I really need a 3rd, and he's a top 15 dynasty wide receiver to me. He's only 26 still. Devontae Smith will play for at least 4 more years at a high level based on how he plays the game. So he is now on my roster.
He is probably universally, between the 3 of us, the player that we all love the most.
Because he's a great wide receiver. Like, what does he not do perfectly? Like, the only downside to him is he was not born with a manimal body. He doesn't have A.J. Brown's body. And that does suck. I would rather have, A.J. Brown on a per game basis. But he's a better route runner than A.J. Brown. He's got just as good a hands. He's a perfect wide receiver.
And for your squad, as your wide receiver 3, that feels good. You're not asking him to be, he can have those spike games. You're not asking him to be your wide receiver 1.
Yeah. And one of the things I love when we were going through the Ultimate Draft Kit, and we're always statting everybody out, and I'm like, man, A.J. Brown is a target hog. In the games he was out there for, he was like 34% target share. That's outrageous. So, it's like, oh, so then you really don't want that second target. And then Devontae Smith was 30%. I was like, he just throws to these 2 guys. So, yes.
I love the Eagles this year from the kind of bounce back standpoint for the pass game. Like, you look at the first half last year of games, and Jalen Hurts was 14th in dropbacks per game in the first half. In the second half, out of 36 qualifying quarterbacks, he was 36 because they were up by 2 touchdowns, and you put the ball in Saquon's belly 20 times and ice the game away. So I feel like across any format in fantasy, Brown, Devonta Smith, even Dallas Goedert potentially, could be values this year. I was actually glad you took him, Jason, because if he fell to me at the back of the 4th / the first pick in the 5th round, like I don't really want both wide receivers, but at that point I'm going to take best player available, and I would have taken both Eagles wide receivers in that spot. At this point, there are still so many wide receivers that I really like. I'm going to take Zay Flowers with this pick at 412. Kyle, I know, is on record saying Zay Flowers is not a touchdown scorer. We'll see if that changes. But Mark Andrews, another year older, probably not on the team next year. Flowers could really open up there as far as his opportunity. And then I'm going to take a potential future play at wide receiver. If he produces for me this year, awesome. If not, and it's next year, great. I will take Emeka Egbuka. Mike Evans, we'll see how long he's still around. Chris Godwin coming from the ankle injury. And the first round draft capital says he's part of their plan. So I will take Egbuka in the 5th round.
5 wide receivers for Betz. I for one, am shocked. I did not see that coming. No, in
imagine
full PPR,
thinking running backs matter. Imagine.
We'll see at the end because you will eventually have to draft a running back, and I totally get it. I just find this is philosophically for me. It's fun to draft a team that's 0 RB, and it's fun to do it in best ball. It is very hard in a managed league to be able to get by when, yes, I'm trying to get from a crop of players that eventually jump up and can have startable roles. I just find that last year, for instance, it just completely dried up if I tried to do that.
The dynasty startups that the real ones, not the mocks, but the ones that go into year after year after year play that I have left with, I'm usually, when I don't have running backs on my roster, because that's just what I sacrificed, basically what happens for me is I'm going into year 1 thinking, I hope something breaks right. Some of my old guys, my backups that are, later drafted running backs just happen to get injuries ahead of them, and then I could maybe win a championship this year. But I know it sounds weird, but when I'm drafting my dynasty team, I want to be competitive, but I'm not I'm not really like going for the championship this year. I'm trying to build a foundation where I'm like really, really, really good for 5 years, so I can, hopefully win 2 championships over the first 5 years. That's kind of my philosophy. But you're right. It is difficult when you go into week 1 and you're like, well, I still have to start 2 running backs and I've got crap and garbage.
Yeah, and I've built both ways. I mean, I have a team that has like 6 stud wide receivers, all top 20. I love my team. It took me a while to get to a point where I felt like I was making noise at running back too. Like I could make up the scores in full PPR, but I also realized that like I was like until Chase Brown broke out, I had nobody for like 2 years. And everyone's like, yes, that's great when it works. It doesn't always work for every single team, but we'll see who we get later.
On the opposite, so I built my roster originally startup. This was like a decade ago now, wide receiver heavy. But then it turned out over the last couple of years, I went into last year and I was running back studly. I had not 1, not 2, but 3 of the top 6 dynasty running backs, depending on rankings, maybe top 8. I had Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, and Travis Etienne, baby. And now it's like, oh no. Oh no. Breece Hall's like a running back 2 in reality. Travis Etienne is dead overnight.
You should have coached them up, Jason.
I know. And
Poor
thankfully
management.
I've still got Bijan, but it's like just the fragility of running
For
backs.
sure.
That is what makes it so hard in dynasty leagues. But
Yeah.
I'm going to take one here. I'm in the 5th round. This is where I usually look to hopefully grab a young stud running back if any are left. And to me, there is one left. There's 2 great rookies here. There's R.J. Harvey and Caleb Johnson. Now, R.J. Harvey, I think, scores more fantasy points this year. I love him. But R.J. Harvey is as old as I am. Even though he's a rookie, he's coming in after, I can only assume, a doctorate. He's got to have passed the bar by now. And so when I look at those 2 guys, I'm going to take the age gap of Caleb Johnson, a player I really believe in. And so I think he will be the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers running game for his rookie contract and maybe beyond, but probably not since he's a Steeler.
There's a lot of running backs that went right there, Jason. So I think it was a good point for you to kind of dip your toes in. Joe Mixon went right before you. Caleb Johnson, Kenneth Walker, Tyler Warren, the tight end, and then R.J. Harvey went off the board. I would have had to do a little bit of a sweat to figure out if I was going to take Harvey as somebody who's not taking a lot of Harvey, but I do like a couple wide receivers, and maybe it is a pick with my heart. Maybe that's where I'm currently at. But
Are you going to do it?
the heart wants what the heart wants. So
Are
I
you
will
taking
take
Chris Olave?
Yep.
I took Chris Olave.
Yes, Kyle. Oh,
People
you and me.
hate Chris Olave now. They
people
hate him.
hate Chris Olave. And you know who else they hate? They hate me and you for loving Chris Olave. I have Chris Olave on our main dynasty team, and I could tell you there's no chance I would have drafted him here because I look at my
Because of the pain?
because of the pain, and because like when I look at my dynasty roster, I feel like right now I have to delete him out. And I think that's an overreaction. I can like self-evaluate enough and know that's I'm probably overreacting to this concussion history and injury, but like what I experienced last year, that's what is it, Betz? Is this his 5th concussion, 6th concussion in his career?
I'd have to look back. I think it's at least his 4th in the NFL, and I know he had at least 1 in college. So
I mean,
and those are documented. So there's probably a couple that slipped through the cracks.
It's
along the
brutal,
way.
and I worry that even though he's young and amazing, I just worry he retires halfway through this season.
Yeah, I think DJ Moore would have felt like a safer pick, or DK Metcalf in that instance, who went right after him. But man, the heart just wanted what it wanted. It's tough when you look at on a per route basis. We've talked about this before, but a higher targets per route run in his career than Justin Jefferson and a slightly lower yards per route run in his career than Jamar Chase. So on a per route basis, people forget he's been good, but a rookie quarterback, there's stuff where this could look like a stupid pick a year or 2 from now, but I still believe. So I am now in the 6th round, and my main kind of going back and forth here is if I take a tight end here, then I'm going to be good for a while. And the only tight end that I think is young with the draft capital that I would believe in would be Colston Loveland, who Warren or Loveland were two targets for me when I get to these middle rounds. Would I be happy if they were on my team? There is a lot of question marks for year one with Colston Loveland, so I feel like he's one of those players in a startup. I would take him and then find somebody else later on, like, I don't know, Njoku or Ingram or somebody like that, then I'm like, okay, I know they have a role in year one. So I'm going to take Loveland right here and kind of solidify the youth of my team as well.
I like it.
Well, I am thrilled that you did that. And first of all, I think it's a great pick. Colston Loveland in the 6th round. If he ends up, I took Trey McBride in the 2nd. I don't see him, getting to that point because of all the mouths to feed in that offense. But a top 10 NFL draft pick, young rookie in a dynasty startup draft, it's surprising, that he's lasted this long. But the reason was because, to me, there was a player I wanted, and I was worried because you had 2 running backs, you had 2 wide receivers, you might go to a onesie position. I was worried about the other onesie position. To me, I've got Bo Nix in kind of a tier break here. I see him as a top 6 fantasy quarterback this year. I mean, really, after that first month, he was, I think, the quarterback 7 last year in his rookie season. I'm hoping he develops into Sean Payton's next Drew Brees. He can run the ball. He had a good touchdown rate. So now that we're in the 6th round, I like the fact that I've diversified a bit with adding Caleb Johnson and Bo Nix to my stable of young Studley wide receivers and Trey McBride.
You love Bo Nix.
I do love Bo Nix.
I've come around to it. Yeah, I think it's a good pick. The wide receivers that went right after this, man, thank goodness they went, because I was going to pull the trigger on Jamison Williams and Jalen Waddle. Thinking about those guys as like fringe 6th, 7th round picks in a startup does seem a little crazy. So I love those values for team 4 and team 3. There's a wide receiver that is on the board. That this is the part where like I've built this wide receiver room as like I don't need help this year. So I'm going to take guys that I think will gain value or could gain value over the next year. There's risk associated with these players, but if I don't take this player here, he's not going to be back to me. I'm going to swing for the fences with Ricky Pearsall.
Oh, you son of a
with
gun.
this pick.
That was my next. He was so much lower in ADP. I thought I already was looking, no joke, I was looking at the next round. The round after my next pick. I was like, because Ricky Pearsall is my next pick. Oh,
I was scrolling for a while there to find him. So yeah, I'll take Pearsall, and then
now I got to figure out what to do.
This is tough. I do feel like I'm like kind of forced into running back here, but I don't really want to do that in a startup, and that's something that will happen in a lot of the startups I do. I get to a point and it's like I feel like I need a running back here, but I have built this team as if I'm not winning this year, and that's fine because I'm not winning with Tyrone Tracy or James Conner as the RB1 of this squad, most likely, with the way that I built it. So I'm going to continue to take who I think is potentially best player available. I am going to call my shot. I'm going to take Drake May in the 7th round as my quarterback and build with how I like to build startups. So yeah, young quarterback, obviously projection going on here, but I think a ton of upside, especially with his legs moving forward.
Okay. May and Herbert were the quarterbacks that I had for this next round earmarked, and they both went off the board. So it's about the spot in a one quarterback where you want to pull the trigger. Depending on if you play Superflex or not, you're probably hearing some of this. I would say 90% of our discussion, you can tailor it to whatever league setting you have, whatever. Just changes the order a little bit. But yeah, you're a May guy, and you're staying true to your stuff. So Jason, have you figured out anybody to pick, or is it just your board's done?
My board's done. I will be checking out now. No, I mean, so Brandon Ayuk is in consideration. He's a little bit older, coming off the injury. I don't love that. When I was doing mocks, I would take Pearsall ahead of Ayuk. Jerry Jeudy is good. He's 26. The way that my roster is built, I'm really looking at youth. Obviously, most of my guys, Neighbors, McBride, Wilson, Caleb Johnson, Bo Nix, they're all very young. I'm wanting to build a real foundation of guys that I know score fantasy points. They're not all just projections, but they're very young still. With that being said, so I could add Devontae Adams to this and just go for more points, but I don't think I want to do that here. I want to kind of amplify my strength. and keep building young prospects that are good. I've got a couple hopes for next round, so we'll see if Kyle gets in the way of that. But right now, I'm going to trust Andy here. Is a player that I've had on my Dynasty team. I recently traded him away. He hasn't been a fun guy to have, but he is a great wide receiver on a good offense. I do think that next year you'll see the departure of Romeo Doubs. You'll see Christian Watson. Who knows what his health is, and he's not long. So I'm gonna take Jaden Reed here.
Wow.
As I said, I want 4 young foundational wide receivers, and I think Neighbors, Wilson, Devontae Smith, and Jaden Reed now makes me stop sweating.
As someone who has rostered Jaden Reed in a couple formats, Jason, you will, like, as much as Chris Olave drives you crazy, Jaden Reed will drive you insane.
Oh, I know it, brother. But the nice thing is, he's my wide receiver 4. That's
He's
where
allowed
you can
to.
He's allowed to be not as consistent. Like he isn't a guy that's going to go out there and catch 100 passes and just be an A in the consistency rating, which means he cannot be my wide receiver 2. I don't even want him to be my wide receiver 3. But at wide receiver 4, he is a guy that can go out and be the wide receiver 1 on a week, have 2 touchdowns at 123 yards. So I think it's the right spot for him.
Yeah.
Real quick,
I don't
before we move on
mind it at
from
all.
Reed, I was going to ask you guys, like, obviously the thought process around Reed entering last year was insanely efficient rookie season, so we should expect a year 2 bump in his playing time, his numbers, all those things. Obviously, in hindsight, we know that did not happen. I feel like there's a better chance than the market thinks that will come to fruition this year because of the fact that there are so many guys that are probably not going to be on this roster next year. So if Romeo Doubs is not back, if Christian Watson is recovering from an ACL in a contract year, probably back in late October, maybe early November, like, don't you think the Packers' hand is forced here to say, we have to make Jaden Reed not an every down player because he's going to play in the slot mostly, but like more than he played last year? That's how I think this is going to go. And I feel like if you were in on Reed last year as a talent, didn't want to buy at the top of the market, now is a good time, whether it's a startup or in a trade, to go get Jaden Reed. So that's where I'm at. I don't know what you guys think on that.
Was that your thought process, Jason, of, I know you did like a swapsy of another wide receiver, but there's a scenario where he balls out, he gets an extension, and he's the guy. Like he's just more fantasy friendly than what Golden is.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I like him more than Golden. I think he's a better wide receiver than Golden, despite Golden being a first round draft pick. Yeah, I mean, he is an inconsistent guy. The reason he's in the 7th round right now is because he was, not on the field as much as we wanted last year, and there's fears. But the path towards him, going forward and becoming an every week, fantasy starter is very clear and obvious as well. So it's a risky pick, but you can do that in the 7th round.
So I'm at the 709, and I'm going back and forth between some wide receivers who are veterans, who I know can be top 24 wide receivers. Devontae Adams on the board, Sutton. If I want to win right now, I get going after those types of players. But a younger player who breaks all of our spreadsheets, sits really well on my team as wide receiver 4. I mean, we liked him this much. I'm going to take Trey Harris right here.
That was my next pick. These were the two coming in where I was like, okay, a 7th round Ricky Pearsall, an 8th round Trey Harris, check out. And of course, I knew being between you two idiots, I would miss out on both of them. Good pick.
Yeah, it's tough when you're like, all of us want to build for the next 4 to 5 years, but I'm looking at Devontae Adams and going, man, I like him this year. I like him when I look at our 2025 projections. Do I want to win this year? And in a mock, we can just look at this team and look at youth, but I really do want to challenge people. Like, Devontae Adams is probably going to be way more valuable this year and maybe even next year than Trey Harris. And so it wasn't the easiest click in the world, but let's take a quick break and we'll move on. We are into round 8 of this, and so far my team is Ashton Genty, Quinshon Judkins, and at wide receiver I have London, Higgins, Chris Olave, Trey Harris, and then Colston Loveland at tight end. I do want to bring up quarterback here because most of the rest of this round has somebody except for Team 6. I don't expect you guys, just talking out loud, to double up quarterback in this spot. Okay, so if I was playing the game right now, I would just say, hey, there's a couple of quarterbacks that I like and that I'm very willing to go for in a one quarterback league. So I'm just going to say it out loud. Like, I would be happy with Baker, Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, and even CJ Stroud a little bit further. So I'm going to risk that one of those quarterbacks make it back to me, and maybe they don't. Maybe the computers just say I don't want to. But at the end of the day, like, I'm just looking for one option that I think can be a top 10 guy. And so I will be taking another wide receiver in the spot that I think can help my team right away, and that's Jaden Higgins. So I'm going a couple of...
You jerk, man. You took 2 wide receivers that I was targeting here with this next pick.
Jason, I don't know if you're aware, Kyle is sorted by your rankings.
Yeah, well, I see that.
He is drafting off of them as we speak.
Well, the nice thing is I had 3 wide receiver targets of the, basically all rookies, Trey Harris, Higgins, good options. But there's a third. I would rather have had the other guys because of quarterbacks. When you've got Herbert at quarterback for Trey Harris, when you've got CJ Stroud at quarterback for Jaden Higgins, those are great long-term dynasty assets. We don't know what the complete future quarterback situation is for Jack Besh, but we know we like him. We love the draft capital, the opportunity to basically be the number 2 on this team by Brock Bowers is another rookie coming in. So I'll take Jack Besh and just have a 5th wide receiver on the board.
I like it. All right, it's time to add a running back to this room, and it doesn't feel good. But Tony Pollard signed a multi-year contract with the Titans a couple years ago. Obviously, he's not the youngest running back in the world, so I don't think this is a pick for, years to come as far as value. So in a 0 RB startup type of environment, Tony Pollard, come on down. And then going back to the next round here in round 9, the first pick of round 9, there's rookies that I think are exciting upside picks, but this is the part where I kind of get to look at contracts, think about who's going to be around and holding value for a year or two moving forward. This guy I haven't really been a huge fan of, honestly, in the NFL because I don't see a huge ceiling, but in a full PPR type format tied to Josh Allen, I will take Khalil Shakir here in the 9th round. Did just sign that, I think it was 3-year extension this past offseason.
How you feeling about Pollard? RB1 for the squad.
It's fine. If I start out 3-3 or whatever, he's a valuable trade asset in season to a contender. That's how I'm viewing Tony Pollard.
No, I think Tony Pollard was an excellent pick. My worry about taking Jack Besh was I assumed you would take Tony Pollard at the turn, and I really wanted Tony Pollard in the next round. Tony Pollard is my running back 2 next to Caleb Johnson. I would have felt pretty good with my ability to compete with those 2 running backs. Obviously, hard for depth and all that, but I think it was a good pick.
All right, Jason, you are back on the clock, 9th round.
So I want that veteran. This is where how I build my dynasty startups. Now that I've got 5 wide receivers, I've got the young, I think Studley quarterback, the super young Studley tight end, and I've got a rookie running back. Now I'm looking late in drafts where, okay, this might be a 1 or 2 year guy, but what is a veteran running back that nobody wants that's going to way outscore their position for being a almost double-digit round pick? And there's 2 players that fit the bill there. There's Aaron Jones and Najee Harris. Najee Harris obviously has to deal with incoming Omarion Hampton. He could lose a lot of value this season, but he's younger, and I expect he'll play football the next year. He'll get, maybe it'll be another 1-year deal for someone else. Maybe he'll go to the Cowboys, maybe whatever it is. But because of the age gap between Aaron Jones and Najee Harris, I am going to take Najee, hoping I can get more than just 1 year of fantasy success. And Najee also is the type of player where I think he'll start the season having significant fantasy points this year. And then when I have backup running backs on my team that I take later in the draft, they can fill in for Najee when he gets overtaken.
So I am now on the clock, and I did gamble at quarterback. Baker and Stroud were gone, but I see Love and Murray sitting there as guys that I would be very happy to have as my quarterback 1. We have Jordan Love in 1 quarterback leagues as a top 75 pick. So I think it's a relative value since I've waited. So I'm going to take Love here. I probably could wait again, but I'm just going to secure a player that I feel really happy about the contract, the situation, the weapons, all of those. And Murray did go right after. So I feel okay about that. Trey Benson is a player that just went that I wanted to highlight as somebody I would have been very happy in this range to take a stab at. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
Oh yeah, Trey Benson is a wonderful. This is the range where he's a great pick. James Conner doesn't stay healthy, and if James Conner goes down, Trey Benson, he's a very talented running back. We saw flashes of it as well in his rookie season last year, so that's great. I am really shocked that you went Jordan Love over Kyler Murray.
Well,
to me, I have a real hard time in my Dynasty startup rankings. I have Bo Nix ahead of Kyler, but they're back to back. And I took Bo Nix forever ago. Obviously, I get a lot of age different here, but the gap in value, if I could have swapped in this round, obviously my last pick, instead of Najee, I could have taken Kyler. If going backwards, you're telling me I could, have Jamison Williams, instead of Bo Nix added to this roster and still have Kyler, I think that would have been great. Instead, you went Jordan Love and you messed it all up.
As somebody who's rostered Kyler in many leagues,
sure,
super frustrating player. Super frustrating player. But no, it was a coin flip. I would have been happy if Kyler was there. I went with Jordan Love. I do like some of the wide receivers still here, but I will take a running back that I think this year and potentially next year can still help my team. And also, I feel like I can start right away. I'm going to take Aaron Jones as a veteran that nobody probably wants to click the button on, but just got a 2-year extension with the Vikings. Jason, 10:08, you were up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if Aaron Jones came back to me, I was saying I chose Najee over Aaron Jones because of the age difference, and I think, I'm more confident that 2 years from now Najee will be playing football and Aaron Jones won't. But I would have drafted Aaron Jones here to stack with this team. So now I'm back up. There's a bunch of different ways you could go. Obviously, I've got one quarterback. I can look to add a second quarterback because injuries, bye weeks, you can't just have only one at either position. Same with my tight end, even though I went early. This is now the 10th round. I've got a target that I am hoping for at tight end or at quarterback in the next round. And while tight end, there's, I think David Njoku is like kind of the last guy in a certain tier available. I've got Trey McBride, and I'm fine continuing to punt and just having the backup be the backup. So that means I'm between wide receiver and running back. There's, young guys, Bashal Tutin, Jaden Blue, old guys like Ramondre Stevenson at running back, and at wide receiver, I could go. There's Jalen Noel, who I like as a incoming rookie, Jacoby Myers, Juwan Jennings, to just have veterans. When I look at all that, I think based on my roster, I need another running back, and so I'm going to take Jalen Warren because he's a good player, and I think he will. He's already an insurance option for me since I've got Caleb Johnson. So should the season start out and Jalen Warren scoring more, great. Should an injury happen, one of them becomes great. And I also think Jalen Warren won't be on this roster next year. So from a dynasty perspective, both of those guys get better next year if Jalen Warren goes and gets a job somewhere else.
I always knew you loved Jalen Warren, Jason. I knew deep down you loved him.
I love Jalen Warren as a player. I do. I was frustrated last year when people were wanting him to score more fantasy points. I'm like, why do you think he's going to do it? It's not. Because it was Najee's team. But he's a good player.
I would have loved to be able to add him to my room, my running back room. Again, I will just keep going. But what I think is best player available as far as building my team, I know I took Drake May, but getting Brock Purdy at the 10-11 turn,
I like it.
Just makes too much sense. So I can take these two quarterbacks and pretty much be set
brand
for
new
the foreseeable future.
Brand new contract. That's a great pick here.
Tons of money coming Brock Purdy's way. And then at this point, it's like, all right, running back, let me just swing for the fences. Give me Bashal Tutin. I know he can't hold on to the football. I know that he has fumbled at least twice since we've been recording this show. But if he does win that job and he is this new regime's guy, then all of a sudden, this running back room doesn't look so bad.
Yeah, I was going to break some news. He's already out of the league.
He's going to crush it in the UFL, dude. It's going to be great. Him and Trey Lance in the same backfield.
Tutin is the guy on the board that I think has by far the most upside. So I like that pick for your build.
All right, so my quarterback target for my second quarterback behind Bo Nix that I was hoping would be here in this round, I think he's very undervalued, which is really funny for me to say.
You don't need to pick him, though. You don't have to.
I don't need to pick him, but I'm going to. I think he's very undervalued. It's weird for me to say that because he was always so overvalued. I don't think he's a great quarterback. He's not. He's not a generational talent. However, he is paid like it, has a massive contract. He was the number 1 pick. He's going to have a job for another 5 years. He's been a top 10 quarterback before, and now he has great weapons in Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. I think do you realize, Trevor Lawrence, he's still 25. He's like,
that's insane.
That's insane to me.
Tyler
he's 25 years old.
Could never understand that.
Poor
So
Tyler.
I will take Trevor Lawrence in the 11th. I think is a dynasty value right now. He's
Agreed.
he was overhyped early in his career, and I think because he was overhyped, now people just hate him, and the pendulum always just swings too far.
It's so funny. You started building your argument. You're like, number 1 pick, paid a lot of money. The offense is going to be good. I was like, is this Jared Goff? Is that who he's taking? There are a couple of quarterbacks. So
25 years old. That was the final piece of the argument.
Oh, Bryce Young was on I was like, man, there's lots of number 1 picks on the board. I will say in a 1 quarterback draft, I want to grab 2 in this middle range. If you don't get an elite one, I want to grab 2 in this middle range. And I feel pretty confident in the Love, Kyler, Lawrence, Purdy tier, Baker even as well, where it's like the same thing in redraft. Like those kind of guys continue to fall. A lot of them are just pocket passers besides Kyler. But man, I really like this tier. So I do think there's a lot of stabs you can take. And you went the age route and the ascending offense route if you wanted to go that direction. I do like a couple of quarterbacks here. I'm going to wait until the next turn, but Dak is somebody that I have marked. I would be excited to have Dak and pair him with Love and just be done at quarterback. At running back, it is very tempting for me to pair Aaron Jones with Jordan Mason and just say, I have the Vikings backfield for this year, the next year, and I would feel really good about my running back room to compete this year. Like Genty, we all love. Judkins can be an RB2, and then the Vikings backfield in itself, I think, can be good. I don't love picking 27-year-old running back who's changing teams, and I don't know if he's the right player. But I'm just going to say for my build, I feel really good. I don't have to do running back for a long time. So I took Jordan Mason there to pair with Jones, and then I am going to take Dak here and just be done at quarterback. So Jason, you are back on the clock in the 12th round.
All right. Here I am. I feel like I'm pretty loaded at wide receiver. Neighbors, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, Jaden Reed, Jack Bash. You can never have too many wide receivers. If there's a really good wide receiver on the board, you got to take him. Xavier Legette, first round NFL draft pick going into the second year. There's a pathway there forward. I'm just, are you guys believers? Do you think he's going to take a step forward and be good? Or now that he's clearly not the future of this franchise's, they go out and draft Tedero McMillan. Where do you think his most likely, not his range of outcomes, but what is he going forward?
I think he will become a spike week, unreliable type of player in the NFL who probably helps the Panthers more than your fantasy team just because of the lack of reliability. I think if he had hit as a rookie and kind of developed and been the alpha that they had hoped maybe he would be, they probably wouldn't have taken T-Mac 8th overall, but the fact that they did probably tells me what they think of him as a ceiling type of play on their roster where he probably doesn't need to or will honestly develop into that type of guy. So that's where I'm at. I think he's fine. I mean, in this part of the draft, you're searching for that upside anyway, so I think it's fine, but I think he's more of a wide receiver 2 in the NFL.
Yeah, I look at the other wide receivers on the board. I'm like, is he Bateman? But I know that the Baltimore offense is going to be better than Carolina. I'm still banking on not just the last 6-7 weeks of Bryce. I'm banking on a full season's worth of him sustaining multiple options, and it's hard for me to see it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I lean too. So when I say if there's a really, real good wide receiver on the board, you take him every time, and I don't see him that way. Betz, we're going to help the audience here because we're going to use your health data, your medical mind. And I need to know, is there a possibility that Javonte Williams regains former athletic glory? He is still young. He has the opportunity as a Cowboy, but he's going into what? This is his third year removed from the devastating knee injury. Will he ever get back to, do you believe he can get back to that guy this year? Or is that just like what we saw last year is the new normal, and that is his ceiling, and now as he ages, he gets worse from there?
So the data historically has shown we want to bet on these guys in the second year off of their ACL surgery, and obviously no two players are the same, but last year would have been that second year, and you really didn't see it. Now, part of me wonders, is that because of the fact that he had a very serious ACL injury that was multi-ligament, not just your straightforward type of ACL recovery, or is it also one of those things that just some players don't get back? Like most do, but some don't. That said, the draft capital previously was there. He was a highly coveted guy, tackle breaking machine. Like the numbers that you look for as far as this should work in the future do support him. I think the bet is pretty thin, if I'm being honest. And I think when I look at this Cowboys team, like when you're in the NFC East in a tough division and you're saying, how can we win games right now? I don't think it's putting the ball in Javonte Williams' belly 18 times. It's probably going to be Dak throwing a ton. So I think Javonte is kind of a 1 year hope for the best and see what happens. But I hope he bounces back. I've loved him as a player since he was in the NFL.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm between Tank Bigsby and Javonte Williams. Tank honestly could be the best running back on his team, and you just took Tootin ahead of him. But I am actually going to take Javonte Williams. Walking through that, there is a small chance, but if that happens, if he takes the horse by the reins and bounces back, I mean, we saw it take a couple years for Chris Godwin, who came back a little bit too early, and Javonte came back too early. Like we were all shocked when he came back as quick as he did. So I'm just going to take the lotto scratcher ticket here, being that we're in the 12th round. He's still young. He's still going to get work. He's going to have fantasy relevance this year, even if he's a plotter, just like he did last year for the Broncos. And he's a 25-year-old, so maybe I get a little bit lucky.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I will continue to go with my gross running back picks here at this point. I'll take Ray Davis. We'll see what happens with James. We'll see what happens with James Cook in the contract. I think he signs at some point soonish, but there's a world that he doesn't. And Davis was actually like okay on a per touch basis last year. So I'll take Ray Davis. And then, I mean, Evan Ingram doesn't scream upside, but like in full PPR with Sean Payton, I think there's a path where this pick in hindsight, I know it's a dynasty startup and obviously he's older, but with this pick in hindsight, you're like, wow, Evan Ingram in the 13th round, not bad. And I need a tight end desperately. So I will take Evan Ingram.
Ingram was somebody I considered, knowing that I have Loveland. I was like, I need to pair him with somebody because my team is more a win now team. And so I think Ingram in this 12th, 13th round is really, really great. Jason's on the clock at 13:05. We're going to finish out. There's lots more rounds, but we're only going to do a couple more here. So Jay.
All right. I am up. I know this pick. It's pretty easy for me. When I look at the tight ends left that I want, that I care about, that I would want to be the backup to Trey McBride, whether they could either be special or whether they could just plug and play. You got Pat Freiermuth, who is, I think he's a good player. We kind of know what he is and what he isn't. I'm not thrilled to add him. I would be okay with it. Cade Otton, whatever. I'm going to take a shot here since I've got McBride, who is locking that position up. I'm going to take a shot on a guy. I don't know if you guys watched the draft video here from the Rams on Terrence Ferguson, but this was a target for them. McVay was literally saying I believe his quote was something along the lines of, he's got a plan for him. And he has these guys. He said the same thing about Puka when he drafted Puka. He's like, this is the last guy that I know how to use him. Like I watch the tape and I go, I know where he fits. We need that guy. And I believe, did they trade up for him? I forget if they did or not in that, but he was clearly a target for that team. I like the film. I like being part of Sean McVay's offense. He's a rookie, so that's my pick.
Yeah, McVay is one of those guys that you just kind of trust whoever it is. He did once draft a second-round tight end with his first pick ever in Gerald Everett, who's like, I got a plan. But I Ferguson just feels like somebody who fits their offense and the yak space that they want to use him in. So I don't mind it here late. You don't really need to, take too many other picks. I went with a pair of wide receivers just to have somebody that I think could be a flex player in Rashad Bateman, and then another rookie in Pat Bryant, who I'm targeting late in another startup. I took him, and I'm like, okay, they think that this guy is good enough. I, in my scouting process, said like, this is a day 3 or day 3 pick, 4th, 5th round player. He ends up going in the round 3.
You almost throw out a day 4 pick?
Yes,
that's
undrafted
really
free. He was somebody that we had in our production profiles, and I had watched the bare amount of film to say I know who this player is. But when he got drafted, I go, I should probably watch every single snap of Pat Bryant because I did not think he would be drafted.
Nobody did.
What do I know? Just a guy on my spreadsheet. Jason took Cedric Tillman, another wide receiver that I think is a good stab late, and Betz finished us out.
Do I take one more pick or 2?
Take 2 just for the kids.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to keep adding to my running back room, which is gross. I'll take Tyler Algier. Obviously, it's pretty much handcuff only type of situation here for Algier, but totally should be rostered in every league. And then I'm going to take Marshawn Lloyd, who we'll see on the health this year, but obviously was a lost rookie season. Yeah, who knows what he is, if he's the next Kendra Miller or if this is a committee with Josh Jacobs moving forward, but worth a stab in round 15.
All right, Jason, last pick here, round 15.
Last pick. Well, I'm looking at my roster, and I've got quarterbacks, I got tight ends. So I think the team need right now is running back. I'm gonna take Sean Tucker.
Dude,
that's our guy.
You need to take him.
I did it just for you, Kyle.
Sean Tucker. The best part about Sean Tucker, I told this to Betz, if he hits, geniuses. We sound so smart. If he doesn't hit, we'll just say, it was a late pick. Never even happened. I will take Roschon Johnson because I think he is a running back that nobody wants, that could end up being the guy later on. So, Betz, why don't you review your roster, and then Jason can, and then I can.
Yes, I started wide receiver times 6 with Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, Emeka Ibuka, Ricky Pearsall, tacked on Khalil Shakir in the 9th round, and then at quarterback, I've got Drake May and Brock Purdy. At running back, this is where you vomit: Tony Pollard, Bashal Tutin, Ray Davis, Tyler Algier, and Marshawn Lloyd.
All right, at quarterback, I've got my Bo Nix, Trevor Lawrence combo. At wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, Jaden Reed, Jack Besh. Who else here? Cedric Tillman. And then at running back, started early with Caleb Johnson, and then a bunch of scrubs: Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, Sean Tucker, and Javonte Williams.
Yeah, but if you had a dynasty league in 2021, your running backs would be killing it.
This roster is going to crush. And I've got Trey McBride sitting there at tight end.
Trey McBride's awesome. All right, so my quarterbacks are Jordan Love and Dak Prescott. I have Colston Loveland as my tight end, who I'll probably need to pair somebody else with. My running backs are Ashton Genty, Quishon Judkins, Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. I have the Vikings backfield, and Roschon Johnson. And at wide receiver, London, Higgins, Olave, Trey Harris, Jaden Higgins, Rashad Bateman, and Pat Bryant. Feel free to leave your comments, tell us all the dumb picks that we made. And if you want a complete 25-round mock, once again, that'll be in the show description and on our website if you want to go there, thefantasyfootballers.com. We did okay. We did okay with our drafts. Make sure you head on over, check out all of Jason's ranks. If you want to draft straight from Jason's ranks, you can do that, ultimatedraftkit.com. And we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.